for everybody out there, this is a Compass MS Care program provided by MS Views and News. I am president and founder of MS Views and News. Sponsoring today's program is EMD Serono, Sandoz, Genentech, Biogen, Banner Life Sciences, Bristol-Myers Squibb, Sanofi Genzyme, and Novartis. All of these companies, all of these pharmaceutical companies are greatly behind the programs that we provide because they do make an impact. So I'm glad that you're all here today to be able to see this. Fortunately, also, we had some exhibitors out here. It was very hard for the exhibitors to get to this location, but we had Bristol-Myers Squibb, Alexion, and Banner Life Sciences. So again, let's give our sponsors a nice welcome. Thank you. All right. Again, everybody in attendance, thank you very much for being here. Our speaker is Paul Pelland, and Paul is LongHaul Paul. Many people know him online, LongHaul Paul. All right, Paul is a former motorcycle champion. All right, he's done a lot of events around the United States for the motorcycle industry, which you'll hear about, as well as for MS Views and News. He raises awareness back and forth. He's riding 1,000,000 miles for a cure, and you'll hear about that as well. All right, so let's welcome Paul Pelland. Come on up.
Thank you, Stuart. Multiple sclerosis affects each of us in different ways. My MS symptoms are mostly cognitive. Short-term memory loss, mental fatigue, multitasking, impaired planning, decision-making, and short-term memory loss. Did I mention that one? Despite the hours and hours that I've spent preparing this presentation, I have no idea what slide comes next. But thankfully, we have lots of ways today that can help us out. Technology, when we remember to use them, right? I also experienced some numbness, tingling, burning sensations, loss of strength issues. Heat, today, is a big enemy of mine. Trying to get messages or signals through the damaged circuits in my brain gets really difficult when my body overheats. Even slightly from temperature, from exercise, or from hot days, which causes all of my old symptoms to come back. How about you? Anybody have the same issue with the heat? Air conditioning, right? Lately, I've had to deal with a cheating, lying, good-for-nothing bladder. That's been a real fun, especially when I'm traveling on a motorcycle with all my gear on. When I was first diagnosed, it was very obvious to me, clear, the importance of getting on disease-modifying treatment. And for the past 17 years, to slow the progression, for the past 17 years, I've been on some variety of different disease-modifying therapies. I also started taking better care of myself, exercising regularly and eating healthier. Most importantly, I have discovered that by continuing to do something that I love, following my passion of riding a motorcycle every single day, I've been able to keep my disease from controlling my life. Please remember, MS is not who we are. If you look up MS in the dictionary, I guarantee you're not going to see my picture. So make sure your picture doesn't make it there either. Before getting diagnosed, I was a top long-distance motorcycle competitor, and I rode in some of the toughest motorcycle endurance competitions in the country. During what became my last competition, I experienced weakness, loss of dexterity in my hands, confusion, and memory loss. I retired and pretty much gave up riding motorcycles altogether. I tossed away my dreams, my plans for the future. I sold my business, and I prepared for the absolute worst. Well, it never came, so I stopped waiting for it. 10 years ago this month, I realized although I could never compete in motorcycle endurance competitions again because of my symptoms, I could still ride a motorcycle across the country, and then I'd given up on an activity that I really loved way too early. Within a few months, I recalculated my entire life's road, and I'm now on a fascinating adventure, riding every day possible, following my passion, while trying to help others recalculate their road as well. The story I'd like to share with you tonight is real, but the names, the dates, and the locations have all been changed to protect the innocent. Back in 2001, I was not yet experiencing any MS symptoms of symptoms of multiple sclerosis. But I rode a motorcycle that did. Lemons and Long Shots is my story of my experiences entering the granddaddy of all endurance competitions called the Iron Butt Rally. It took me over a decade to realize how entering the world's toughest motorcycle competition on the world's most unreliable motorcycle ever built was frightfully similar to everyday challenges brought on by the unpredictable symptoms of MS. However, this adventure also taught me there's nothing MS can stop me or you from attempting. We just have to work a bit smarter, push a little harder, but we can accomplish amazing things when we put our heart and our soul into it. Although the story I'm going to tell tonight is about a motorcycle competition, I hope you'll soon realize the motorcycle represents MS and all of its symptoms. The event represents life, and the person or the rider, who happens to be me, could easily be any one of you here today. Has anyone heard of the Iron Butt Rally? Couple people? So more people have been in space than have finished an Iron Butt Rally. It's called the world's toughest motorcycle competition. It runs 11 days long, and the average rider will rack up over 11,000 miles. Points are accumulated by reaching checkpoints after visiting optional bonus points. It's not a race. It's more like a scavenger hunt on steroids. A drawing is held every 2 years to determine which riders get in from thousands of entries. I knew that a few select spots were kept available for either weird motorcycles or antiques. So when my name wasn't drawn for the 2001 rally, I sent a letter begging to ride the biggest piece of crap motorcycle ever built if they would just let me in the rally. I told them I would ride a Russian-made Ural. Anybody know what a Ural is? Okay, anybody own a Ural? I'm going to apologize right now for the whole talk tonight. So, and this was back a few years. They're much better now, I will admit. So knowing how unreliably poorly made the motorcycle was, the organizers of the rally first replied that they thought I was an idiot. But I was in the rally. At this point, not only did I not own a Ural motorcycle, I had never even seen one in person. So I was excited, and I wrote the manufacturer, the bike's manufacturer, to see if they wanted to sponsor me. The company responded back, "Sorry, Paul, but no one here in our office actually thinks our bike could finish." Talk about a red flag. So I found and bought a used Ural. I hot rodded the engine, and I entered it in a smaller rally to test it out. About halfway through the 36-hour event, the motor decided to weld itself useless. As the big event was getting closer, I wrote again to Ural America, begging them to help me out. And they answered in a big way. They agreed to officially sponsor me. I just couldn't tell anybody. Talk about confidence. So they delivered a very secret weapon a few weeks before the 2001 Iron Butt Rally. I was going to be riding the first Ural motorcycle registered in the United States with a brand new, redesigned, more powerful 750cc engine. I had to sign all these non-disclosure agreements because the new engine, which was the first change in design since Moses rode one to the Red Sea, it was a big secret. The 2001 rally started and finished in Alabama with 3 checkpoints: California, Washington, and Maine. On a map, the base route was just like a big rectangle. How hard could it be, I thought.
At the Ramada Inn in Huntsville, Alabama, the motorcycle people have taken over, and not just any motorcycle people. Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Despain. Welcome to Bike Week. Let me show you some motorcycles here.
I am riding a 2001 Ural.
How do other people react when they hear that news?
Well, I get quite a bit of ribbing, but I give it right back so I can take it. And I've put a lot of miles on Urals, and things go wrong. I know what to do to fix it, and I have every intention of finishing the rally.
So yeah, I took a lot of ribbing for the choice of motorcycle for the Iron Butt Rally. In fact, some of the riders were actually upset that I had taken somebody's spot, and I was wasting a spot that somebody with a real motorcycle who had a chance of finishing could have had. And you know, sometimes we need to remind people it's not the bike, or when you live with multiple sclerosis, it's not our bodies, but the rider, the person, our spirit and our willpower that will propel us over the finish line. My bike was well prepared. Huge saddlebags to fit all the spare parts and tools that I would need, a custom seat, bigger windshield, extra driving lights, extra fuel, CB radio, a radar detector. I don't know why I need a radar detector. GPS. I was clearly ready to ride the world's toughest motorcycle competition, right? You could taste the anxiety the morning of the start. After all, some of us have been preparing for this ride for years. My strategy, which I proudly proclaimed, is I was going to ride as freaking fast as I could, so when I broke down, I would have more time to fix it. I was the only one who thought I had any chance of even making the first checkpoint. Most riders were having an excellent first day, collecting bonuses by taking a photograph of their rally flag next to a monument or things, whereas in West Memphis, Arkansas, about 250 miles from the start, my Ural's engine self-destructed. I frantically called Ural America for help. Curiously, they didn't seem surprised. We found a Ural dealer in Tennessee who did not have any motorcycles for sale, but he had his own personal Ural, and he agreed to let me borrow the engine from his bike. I was afraid to close my eyes in the tow ride, a 3-hour tow ride with an insane tow truck driver. So I slept on the garage floor while the mechanic removed the disease engine from my bike and swapped in his own engine into my frame in the middle of the night. I was extremely grateful, and better yet, I was back in the rally. I left the garage like a bat out of hell. Probably not a good idea. My bike now had a 1928 design 650cc engine without electric start. I soon realized that the blinkers and the brake lights didn't work. I kept waiting for the engine to warm up and smooth out, but apparently crappy was how this particular engine liked to run. I stopped to check on the rear lights after a quick rest. The engine refused to start. I alternated 4 hours of kicking and swearing with resting and praying before it haphazardly coughed to life. And I was on the road again, heading to Pomona, and I was going to prove everybody wrong. That was until my morning freeway crash in Arkansas. The front end had developed a bit of a crunchy wobble, and a series of dips in the road started a oscillating shimmy that turned into what they call a tank slapper. I knew I was in trouble when I looked to my left and I saw my own butt. I slid down the highway just behind my bike, watching bright, colorful sparks unlike any of those Japanese bikes could create. After I stopped rolling a bit, I slowly checked myself over, stood up. I was in one piece, but the bike, the windshield was cracked in half, the brake levers were bent, both of the air cleaners were now nowhere to be found, the hand grips had been ground down, there was a 3-inch hole in the side of the engine cover, which leaked oil all over the road. There was damage to the saddlebags, the blinkers, the driving lights. What a mess. I had made it through a blown engine, a scary tow ride, an engine transplant, electrical problems, 4 hours of just trying to kickstart the bike, and now a crash? It was really hard to believe. It was just 24 hours since the 11-day event had begun. I was exhausted, bruised, embarrassed, and peed off that this piece of crap machine couldn't even roll in a straight line without falling apart. Maybe it's just me, but can you see how this adventure or misadventures is starting to sound just a little bit like one of those tougher days with MS? I had given it all I had, but my Iron Butt rally was over. After I explained what had happened to the Arkansas State Trooper who showed up, he simply asked me, well, what are you going to do about it? And I said, what? He says, well, why don't you try to patch it up and see if you can continue? The thought had not occurred to me. I got out my JB Weld epoxy, duct tape, and the officer patiently waited while I made repairs. I told him I needed oil. The engine crack had spilled oil all over the road, so he went back to his patrol car to see if maybe a tow truck could bring us some oil up on the highway. After he returned after a couple of minutes, I said, are they bringing oil? He said, no, they wanted too much money. I said, I don't care what it costs. He says, no, don't worry. He says, I called my wife at home. She's going to get 2 quarts of 2050 oil and meet us up here on the highway. As I travel the country, I've benefited from the generosity of so many strangers just like this, many, many times. The officer's encouragement to continue and his wife's selfless act of kindness is not as rare as the world would make us believe. Asking for help or accepting help from friends or strangers is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. Please do not be afraid to ask for help when your MS causes you to stumble or crash. Back to the story. Well, I rode to the first exit to really check myself over and, to be honest, change my underwear. I called into the rally headquarters to say that I wasn't quitting. And the day two of the official rally report online read, Team Lazarus rides again. Tuesday afternoon, I was experiencing this intermittent problem. The engine would suddenly start to lose power. And as I bent over trying to figure out what was going on, it would pick up again and I'd have full power. Well, it happened 4 or 5 times before I realized that my pant leg was getting sucked into one of the carburetors that had lost its air cleaner. Sort of reminds me of how quick we are to always blame MS for every ache and pain we have, right? Sometimes it's just an ache and pain. Early the next morning, somewhere in New Mexico, the headlight, once as bright as a lit cigarette, began to get dimmer and dimmer. I pulled off the first exit, and I began checking over the wiring and connections. I found a broken wire in the back of the alternator. I wasn't worried. I was carrying a whole spare alternator. Unfortunately, the spare alternator was for the 750 bigger engine and not the transplant engine, so it didn't fit. It did fit in the dumpster in the parking lot I was at. After a few dents in the tank, some cursing, and an act of contrition, I was able to repair the alternator. I had to push start the bike, but I finally did get it to run. Things were going along pretty normal, fairly normal, until Wednesday afternoon. I was 150 miles from the first checkpoint. I had 5 hours to get there. No sweat, right? I was in the desert. It was 110 degrees. My bike has MS, remember? Okay. Well, my bike hates the heat. one of the two cylinders calls it quits. So I continue limping along at about 25 miles an hour until I reached the hill. The bike just refused to go another inch and dies. I was completely fried. The bike was totally fried. The California Highway Patrol officer who stopped was not very friendly or willing to let me fiddle with it on the side of the road. I didn't even bother to ask him to call his wife. Against my will, we were towed into Barstow, California. I did all I could to fix the bike, but I finally conceded I wasn't going to make the Pomona checkpoint. I had been through so much, and I was so close, but my brain was fried. I was overheated, angry, and then I became extremely depressed. I was a failure. I called into the checkpoint, reporting I wasn't going to make it on time. That's when the rally staff reminded me I could miss one checkpoint. As long as I went there, got a gas receipt to prove I was there, and did not miss any of the other checkpoints. Oops. Doesn't that happen at the Grand Canyon? Selfie. Oh. I'll be here all the week, try the veal. Okay. I would, however, they cautioned, I would not get any of the bonus points that I got from leg one. Bonus points, I said? I haven't gone for one single bonus yet. I eventually found the stripped strip nut in the dry valve train. I was able to jam two nuts together to get it back in place, and the bike started right up, and now both the bike and I were running on both cylinders once again. I went to Pomona, I got my gas receipt. Now, I got to experience the Santa Monica Freeway during morning rush hour with only one turn signal and no brake lights. It was quite the experience. I only remember one breakdown on the way to Sunnyside, Washington, and I diagnosed it and fixed it without even slowing down. Getting pretty good. I fell asleep on a soft patch of parking lot asphalt, and upon waking up the next morning, I could hardly believe I had made it all the way to checkpoint 2. I got scored, and besides the riders that were actually out of the rally, I was in last place. Most of the riders were amazed to see me. They had heard some rumors that I was having some trouble. The Ural factory team was originally meeting me in Washington for service, like an oil change, but now they were installing the only other 750cc engine in the entire country into my bike. So now my bike was given its third engine and a full service. My electrical wiring was repaired, and heck, it was like I had a brand new old bike again with a second chance at a great finish. Do you ever feel like you have superpowers after getting a good dose of steroids? So I looked over the bonus listing, and I expressed to the rally staff that I was thinking about heading to Alaska for one of the big bonuses on this leg. That's when I was strongly encouraged not to go to Alaska. In fact, I was actually threatened. If I went to Alaska and I failed, my chances of ever riding in the Ironbutt Rally again were slim to none. And then the rally organizer added, Paul, you don't understand. He says, more people are paying attention to your misadventures than the guys winning the rally. And then he added quietly, and some of us think you might finish. That was very good advice. Things were going very good until the next day. I heard this jingling sound coming from the left side of the engine. It sounded like keys were dangling. But I began to get worried, so somewhere near Rock Springs, Wyoming, I pulled off the highway into a dirt rest area to investigate. I found a bunch of aluminum shavings in the valve cover. One of the engine push rods seemed to be bent. It was spinning in an oblong orbit. So I called and explained what I had discovered to Golden Hands Alex, who was the head Russian mechanic, who instructed me, remove push rod, bang straight on rock with hammer. I removed the bent push rod only to find it wasn't bent. The steel cap had broken off the aluminum shaft. The push rod was in two impossible pieces. So I called back the #1 top Russian factory expert technician, who simply said, "No problem, fine metal, make push rod." Push rods are somewhat important internal parts of an engine. They move up and down to open and close the valves, letting in gas and air and letting out the exhaust at the precise time. John Quinones asks, "What would you do?" I did have quite a bit of tools and spare parts with me, but I didn't have any push rods for a 750 engine. I knew duct tape wasn't going to hold, so I decided to try some epoxy. I let the glue harden, and I put the push rod back inside the engine. The bike started, and I took off, trying to be real gentle on the throttle. Incredibly, I made it 50 miles before somewhere near Rawlins, Wyoming, the pasted-together push rod fails. Once again, I'm putting along at 25 miles an hour, running on one cylinder. The engine was thumping, and the rhythm began to take on a curious verse. Go home, go home, go home, go home, go home, go home. This was a pivotal moment. I stood up on the foot pegs, I opened my helmet visor, and I screamed at the top of my lungs, "I will not go home, and I will not give up, you commie bastard!" Sorry about the French. And with a grease pencil, I wrote across my windshield, "I will not give up." And I knew no matter what, I was going to finish. I just needed a better plan. I caressed my injured donkey into Rawlins, Wyoming, where I found a hardware store. And in 5 minutes, I found my solution. I purchased a couple of long, hardened drill bits. And with a grinder I spotted in the back room, I forged a couple of brand new Ural push rods. Fine metal, make push rod. Who says I never follow the factory recommended service interval? The drill bit push rod actually worked, and the bike ran better than ever before. I was back on the road and on my way to the 3rd checkpoint. I made it to the 3rd checkpoint in Maine, and I retrieved my care package that I had mailed there a week earlier. The box reads, "This package is for the guy riding the biggest piece of crap in the Iron Butt Rally." You know, my whole life I found laughing and joking, even at my own expense, to be a powerful medicine. Today, living with MS symptoms and deficits is no different. I often make fun of my bad memory, my bladder, when I trip, or when I get lost in the parking lot and need help. For me, joking gives the disease less power over me. Here's a picture of my bike with my windshield with my words of encouragement. It also says things like, check tire pressure, check your push rods. Normal things you do at a gas station. With the exception of another charging system failure and another alternator repair, I had a rather uneventful 1,300-mile ride to the finish in Madison, Alabama. Of 114 riders that started the 2001 Iron Butt Rally, 93 made it to the finish line. I may have come in 86th place, but I did indeed finish the world's toughest motorcycle competition. In 11 days, I had ridden the motorcycle, never intended for anything even remotely close to what I did to it. I rode a bike in an event where other riders thought I was wasting a valuable entry spot, and even the organizers officially listed me in the hopeless class. I crossed the finish line on a bike whose own company president said wouldn't make it. My struggle to overcome impossible challenges over those 11 unforgettable days helped shape who I am, and has taught me that if my desire and my willpower is strong enough, there's nothing multiple sclerosis is going to stop me from attempting. This story helps me get through those days when my symptoms seem like they're winning, or when I wake up worried about disease progression. So I hope sharing my story can help you as well. Having a brain riddled with holes, having a physical or a mental challenge, or riding a piece of junk motorcycle should never confine or define who we are. Please remember, you do not have to come in first place to still be a winner. I know we all have different MS symptoms, and my course of the disease has been quite manageable compared to others. And I certainly don't expect anyone in this room to run out, buy a motorcycle, and ride it all over creation. But I do know some of you were passionate about something at some time, and maybe that passion was put aside after getting MS. Well, I hope my million-mile journey for MS inspires you to return to or find a new passion in your life and to make that passion more important than your disease. Look beyond the obstacles in the road, lean hard into the wind, and never give up on your hopes and dreams. That's about all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Does anybody have any questions for Paul?
Paul, do you still own that Ural?
So the story goes, no, it was the KGB met me in a parking lot somewhere in North Carolina. I've never seen it again, and there was no collusion. I have had no contact with the Russian spies since then. No, actually, the deal was they sold it to me for $1, and after the rally, they took it back. Display somewhere, and then I think once my story got published, I think they burned it, and probably the two guys let me get it.
We have a question back
I actually
here.
I wish I knew where it was today, you know. And of course, I didn't have MS then, so you know, it was amazing to me realizing why this part of my life happened and how it relates so much, how it makes it so easy to explain to people what it is like having chronic illness or you know, disease like MS.
Paul, do you ever have symptoms while you're driving?
It's funny, on the motorcycle, I say it all the time, I don't have MS. When I'm riding, whatever it is that my brain is paying attention to, it seems like the issues that I have in a normal day don't bother me as much. Now that being said, I have had issues with weakness, especially like on a hot day like today. If I was out, I did go out this morning for a ride, but if I had gone out this afternoon and I was stuck in traffic and I overheat, I would start to have some weakness in my legs. And I haven't had any accidents per se, but I've had some close calls where, you know, weakness in my legs have created a problem where I'm like, I know it's time to get off the road and go find a hotel or stick my head inside one of those ice chests outside a gas station.
Okay, right here. Question?
What mileage are you at now?
So I started 10 years ago, and I'm a little over 500,000. So I've ridden 500,000 miles, all going to MS events. So if I'm not raising money or doing something with MS, the bike sits in the garage. So.
Oh my gosh, tell them about the chopper, please.
So every couple of years, I try to find something stupid to do to raise money. And so last year, I got Yamaha's. Yamaha's my sponsor, great motorcycle company. They've been providing me with bike service. They're feeding me all this week at Sturgis, and they've been great to me. So they gave me a bike, and we built it into a chopper. And the idea was I wanted to be the first person to ride a chopper from coast to coast in under 50 hours. And so, and then we raffled off the chopper. That's how we raised money. So we built this chopper, which was a lot more work than I realized, and I've never built a chopper before. I'm not a chopper guy. Do I look like a chopper guy? But it was fun, and so we built it, and I rode it. The Iron Bud has a 50cc ride where it's coast to coast, 50 hours. The shortest distance is 2,300 miles, Jacksonville, Florida to San Diego. And when I told people I'm doing this, they go, no big deal, Paul. You do a lot of dumb stuff. So I said, all right, I'll do the hard way. And the hard way is the traditional New York City to San Francisco, which is 2,900 miles coast to coast. And it's called the Coast to Coast Gold. So I said, all right, I'll ride this uncomfortable, ridiculously loud, obnoxious chopper, and I'll do it the hard way, the hardest possible way, where, you know, guys on Gold Wings, the big touring bikes can't do it. So I did. I rode 2,900 miles in 46 hours, nonstop, coast to coast. And so I set another silly world record. And then we raffled off with a chopper. The guy who won the chopper, we delivered it last year. And he emailed me a few weeks ago and he said, Paul, he says, I really appreciate what you did on this bike. He says, I just tried to ride it 300 miles. He said, I got to where I was going. I bought a trailer and rented a truck to get it home. And then he sold it. He couldn't ride it. He said, it's way too uncomfortable. And that was the point. So,
All right, great. Thank you very much, Paul. We appreciate you being here. So we thank you for everything you've done. And Paul rides around, like he said, rides around the United States doing these things and raising money. So again, we want to thank all those that supported tonight's program. Again, everybody, good night.